Hi guys, it's Theresa here of Larkin Design. And so welcome to a brand new series that I wanted to start bringing to you, hopefully about once a week. And my goal here is to use up some of the things that come in kits or product collections or whatever, and there's 10 or 15 of them. And in the Freckled Fawn kit for May of 2017, these transparency frames were a part of that kit, and I was really inspired by them. I love transparent elements in my layout, and so my design concept for this layout was to do a series of these frames across the page, one of them with the photo, and then the others to be supporting frames and have a list or some journaling written inside them. So what I'm doing here is I'm tracing around. I've laid out all of the frames on just a plain piece of white basil cardstock, and then I'm tracing around each of the frames so that I'll be able to remember where I want them to go and how I've designed the page. I also have some speech bubbles that are also sort of transparent pieces. They're going to be scattered across the layout as well in between the frames. And then I'm also using some little tiny chipboard pieces to embellish each one of the frames, and those are all from Freckled Fawn. So my idea here is I'm going to add some watercolor sprinkles across the page. I want to test out and see if I have the water levels on my brush at a good place to be able to splatter. And this is just to add a little bit of fun to the white cardstock and another layer of visual interest. And I've chosen the colors from these acrylic frames, and so those are going to be carried throughout any of the embellishments that I use. So the watercolors that I'm using are all going to be this turquoise, yellow, purple, and sort of rust color, and a green. And then I also have some embroidery thread that I've matched to those transparent elements as well. So once I have some of those colors splattered across the page, I'm just going to grab a paper towel real quick and remove some of that moisture from the cardstock. And yes, I absolutely made those splatters with the speech bubbles on the page still, and that's one of the reasons why I used the paper towel to lift that moisture, because it took the paint off of the transparent elements already. And so once I have that done, I'm going to go around the page and I'm going to stitch each of these transparent elements to the cardstock. I'm just using a sewing needle that has an extra wide head on it, so you can feed the embroidery thread through it, and I'm using just embroidery thread that's available at Michael's or just wherever you go to buy your craft supplies. My way of sewing these things on is pretty random and informal. I'm just going to do an X on each side, or on one side of each element, and then I knot them and tape them in the back. And this is sort of a long process that isn't really very exciting, maybe. So I'm not going to share with you my whole process of attaching every one of these elements to the page. That made the video pretty long to try and include all of that. But I think you get an idea of what I'm doing here. I'm just using my paper punch tool to make a good punch for the needle to go through, and then just one at a time making an X. I did do straight stitches on that one you and me speech bubble, just one straight stitch on each side, just to be different, I wanted this layout to sort of feel a little bit random and a little bit funky. Um, I think these frames are kind of funky. They're a lot of fun. Um, and so hopefully that carries through the layout. You can see here on the back how I'm just knotting the ends together, and then I just lay a piece of tape over those ends to keep them sealed in. Hopefully they won't pop out or anything like that. And I'll be honest, that's about the extent of stitching that I ever go to. I'm in awe of artists like Paige Evans who do a lot of stitching on their layouts. I think it's really incredible and it's really beautiful work. It's not something that I have the patience really to do, but I can do some basic X's here like this, and that's fun for me. I like it for the pop of color, and I like it to carry the colors through again. Now the next step, of course, I had traced around all of these frames. So my next step is to add just a few dotted lines inside each of the frames. I'm using the LE Studio stamp set, Live, Laugh, Love, and there was a little tiny dotted line stamp in there, included in that. And so that's where my journaling is going to go for this layout. And I've just added some more lines than others, and they're just in the center of each of these frames. And now I'm going to go and one by one I'm going to erase the lines that I drew and place these frames and then stitch them down as well. And it's just one at a time. I'm not being overly particular about getting them placed exactly where they need to be, but the lines that I traced were definitely helpful in keeping me on track for the original design concept of the layout. And so then for each frame, I'm just using a different color of embroidery thread, but still keeping in the same color scheme. And then once I have all of these stitched to the layout, and again, I'm not going to share stitching down every frame, but once I have these all stitched down, then I'll go back and I'll add my journaling. And I also have a chipboard embellishment from Freckled Fawn that I plan to add to each one of the frames, just to add a little tiny embellishment. You could add any sort of embellishment to these frames. I was thinking that some epoxy flowers would be really cute to add. Any sort of chipboard embellishment or a prima flower if you wanted to do it that way. Any one of those. So now you can see here where all of the frames have been attached. All of the chipboard embellishments have been layered on top, and my photo is also in place. The photo is in between the frame and the cardstock, so it's just adhered directly to the cardstock, and then the frame is stitched on top of that. I'm going to clean up a little bit after doing all that erasing. My desktop was just covered with erasing marks. Freckled Fawn had these little white foam words as well. They were in a previous month's kit. They were not in the May kit. And so I chose the amazing word here at this point. The photo that I've used here is just one that it's a quick selfie that Alan and I took before our last date night. And, it wasn't one of the best selfies that we ever took. It was really hazy for some reason. And that's okay. It's just a fun, happy little photo that lent itself to being scaled down a little bit. I scaled it down to, I think it's about 2 inches by maybe 3 inches or something like that. It's really tiny. And then, of course, I'm adding my journaling. And for my journaling here, I ended up making a list about 7 amazing things about Alan. And so then I'm going to add a couple of these little heart stamps. This stamp set from Ellie's studio, it had these little hand-drawn hearts included. And so some of them I'm going to stamp next to each other, some of them on top of each other, some of them in a row. Just, again, sort of random, but also bringing the page together a little bit. Repeat each element that you introduce, right? So there's black ink from where I wrote my journaling, and now there's black ink from stamping the hearts. There's purple from the acrylic word phrases, and purple from the embroidery thread. There's turquoise from a transparent frame, and there's turquoise from some of the chipboard elements. So always repeat your elements. It helps make this, even though this is a random kind of layout, it still brings it together and helps it feel cohesive. Fun and random, but still cohesive here. And then this adorable little alphabet set, also from Freckled Fawn, right? This is a heavy, heavy, heavy Freckled Fawn product layout, and I love it. I love every bit of it, right? 0 pattern papers on this layout. Make your own pattern papers with your embellishments, right? But the alphabet set became the inspiration for the title. And so the title became 7 Amazing Things About You. And the title also, just like the rest of the layout, is sort of random on the page. You'll get to see at the end, I'll do some close-ups as always. And so you'll get to see how that title turned out being. I did notice somehow, I don't think that there was a V in that alphabet set, so I just cut down one of the W's. I may have just missed it in my scatterbrainness. I don't know. But it ended up, of course, it worked out fine, and it looks really cute. And that is pretty much this layout. So I'm going to wrap everything up. And I hope that you will like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you back here again soon. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.